In this video, we will animate the shape layer. As we pay special attention to how shape layers have multiple levels of transform controls. If we look at our project, you can see I have a background Space Illustrator CC layer. I have a shape layer called Planet Outlines. And if I turn that off and on, you'll notice I have two different planets that are contained within this one shape layer. That's right, shape layers can contain multiple objects. If I go ahead and open up my shape layer here in the content section, you'll notice I have a group of planets, and in there I have a small planet. And I have a big planet. And then I have transform options for both of the planets. As well as transform options for the layer itself. So just to understand, when you have transform options for a group of shape layers, if you go ahead and rotate these elements, usually the anchor point will be centered somewhere in between those shapes. So just undo that last comment here. So what if I want to rotate around the center of the composition? Typically, the anchor point remain around the center of the composition. So if you rotate on the layer itself, it will go ahead and rotate. Around the center of the composition. All right, I will just undo that last comment. Now let's look and see what happens when you have a single object on a shape layer. I will collapse layer 2 and open up the options for layer 1. My moon layer. Notice I have a group for the moon, and if I open that moon group, you can see I have an ellipse that makes up the moon. There's a stroke, but its visibility is off. There's a gradient, its visibility is on, and then I have transform options for the moon group. I'm going to make the timeline panel a little bit larger. And I want you to notice there is a transform that's for the layer itself. This is transform for the moon itself. So if I go to the rotation and I scrub, you'll notice the gradient. It's moving around and it's rotating around itself, because I have one object on the shape layer. So the transform options pertain to the single object. Now if I go up to the top and select my shape layer moon, and press R for rotation, this will open up the rotation on the transform properties for the layer. Just to show you that, I will collapse layer 1 and open it up. And notice, here's my contents, which contains my moon group, which contain my transform options for the moon group. But here for transform, when I go to scale or I go to rotation, you notice these elements pertain to the layer itself. So I want to go ahead and animate the moon orbiting around the planet. And since the planet was at the center of the composition, the moon will easily orbit around the planet by just going ahead and keep framing this rotation. So I will set the rotation parameter to 0 and frame 0. And click the stopwatch. Then I will go ahead and move 3 seconds down the timeline. And I will say I want it to have rotated 1 full rotation around this planet. So I will say 1 and press enter. Then if I move my current time indicator back to the beginning of the timeline and press the spacebar, you will see I have the moon rotating around the planet